With the dozens or hundreds of small business owners I have worked with in the past, the one thing they all love and crave and want to deal with is conflict. And if you're sensing sarcasm in my voice, well spotted. Conflict is probably the number one area of the business they hate dealing with. I think I told the story before. I have a former long-term client who said, man, I'd love running a business if it weren't for the people. When you have people, you have conflict. But what if there was a way you could take that conflict, that negative energy, and turn it into creative teamwork? If that sounds interesting, you'll want to stay tuned into our show here today. Welcome to the KeyHire Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Harlock, creator of KeyHire Solutions, where we help small business grow with our talent. Before we jump into the show, quick reminder, whatever you're listening to us on here today, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, please follow or subscribe to the channel. Help us spread the word. We do this show to help small business owners. It's really our mission to help you and give you a peek behind the curtain as to what's going on out there in the world. So help us spread the word by subscribing. We would greatly appreciate that. And then secondly, especially if you're on your handheld here today, go to the first line in the show notes and it says text us a message. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if there's a guest you'd like us to go after. Let us know if there's a topic you want us to cover, or just let us know if you like the show or hate the show. We'd love to hear from you. And then the third thing is underneath that, there's my LinkedIn, a link to my LinkedIn profile. Click that, connect with me, say, Corey, love the show, and I will definitely accept that connection request. All right, battling off a cold. I'm playing injured here today. Fighting off a cold. We're 3 days away from Christmas. I have my festive Christmas tree in the background, which my daughter and wife put in here against my will. I'm not a Scrooge, but I just didn't want a Christmas tree in my office. Oh yeah, a little feedback. The show we did a couple weeks back with Marianne Malachek on AI virtual assistants, man, that show got a lot of traffic and a lot of hits and a lot of comments. And Devonte M said capturing opportunities is vital. AI can truly be a game changer. And that's true, right? Answering 24/7, answering phone calls. So if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back. There was some amazing stuff in there. Okay, on to our guest here today. Our guest today is Yvette Durazo. She is a workplace strategist, international speaker, and author of In the Heels of a Smart Negotiator. And she helps leaders in small businesses boost their conflict IQ to resolve disputes, build inclusive cultures, and negotiate with confidence. Matt, let's bring on Yvette. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Hey, you're welcome. How badly did I butcher your last name? Is it Durazo?
Yeah, that's fine. Durazo works.
That's not the right way. How do you pronounce it?
Well, if you're Latino, you're gonna say Durazo, but
I'm
Durazo
clearly not
is
a
fine.
Latino.
The same thing goes with Yvette. Some people say Yvette, and others say Yvette.
Yvette.
That's fine.
So say it for me. Say it for me in the way a Latin person would say it.
Yes, you're good.
How would you say it though? Yvette.
Yvette.
And then the last
Durazo.
name. Durazo. Sounds
Yvette
much
Durazo.
nicer when you say it than when I say it. So we're talking about conflict, team conflict. I don't know about you in your world, but this is an area small business owners can really kind of put their head in the sand sometimes. Either they avoid it and stuff runs rampant and their culture goes to hell, or they jump in and they try to end it right in the minute. This is over, it's done. And that's probably not the most effective way to resolve conflict either. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Definitely. We live in a society in where conflict resolution is not a very typical skill. And you can Google research around what are the most top skills needed in the workplace. And throughout the 14 years that I have been developing my consulting business, I have looked into those research. You can look at research from Stanford, for example, from MIT, for example. Recently, LinkedIn, just this year, back in February of this year, did a research study on the most important 15 skills needed in the workplace.
Did you say 50 or 15?
15.
Okay.
15.
15. Got it.
And the first one, it's common to know that it's artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Now people more and more need to have that skill. And the second one is revolving in conflict management, conflict resolution, communication, all the skills that go into being a good conflict resolver. So it is one of those things that is the natural thing in life. Whenever there's one person, you have internal conflict. Whenever you have two people, you will always have space for different perspective, different points of view. And the way that we create meaning out of reality from one way to another is just different.
Right.
But for whatever reason, organizations tend to not want to talk about it. I remember 15 years ago when I first started, and they want to bring me into the organization to do some work, they would ask me, can you please don't say that you're a conflict resolution consultant? Just say you're a consultant. I think in the past 5 years, and I think that because what we have gone through as a whole in humanity, we realize that, performance and pushing performance at any cost is not the way to create success in organizations. We have humanity in organizations. And it is one of the most important, capitals in the organization, your human capital.
Yes, of course.
And I think that more and more people are more open and willingness to be able to say, we're having, at least using the word issue. And that's why throughout my career trajectory, I was able to develop a methodology called conflict intelligence, conflict IQ. And it was because I wanted to convert the word conflict from being a taboo word to something that it is of interest, to something that professionals will be willing and open and receptive to think of it as something that will help them to do well in business.
Sure.
Will help them in their career.
You want to stop it from being a dirty word and an accepted word. Instead, make it just an accepted. Like, hey, we have a conflict here. Let's deal with this. Versus, well, we did it. Like, people are so afraid of hurting people's feelings. But as some people say, that if you want to have an open dialogue and an exchange of ideas, you have to be brave enough or willing to hurt people's feelings that make your point and have it heard, right? Because if they don't agree with you or they don't see what's coming, they don't like your side of it or your point of view, whatever it is, right? We always don't align. I think the world is an amazing example of that right now. And because we don't, conflict is such a dirty word, that chasm just seems to get wider and wider and wider instead of sitting at the table and having a conversation and not being afraid of, I'm not maliciously hurting people's feelings, but like just saying what you believe and trusting that the other person on the other side of the table, whether they agree or not, will be resilient and adult enough to say, okay, I get it, but what about this? What about that? And then you start an exchange of ideas, right? And you bring everyone closer together.
Yeah. And it goes to show what we see right now in society happening, if people don't agree, they go into a fight, they go into killing somebody just because they don't have the same.
They don't start with talking about it. It's not, well, let's sit down and have a conversation. It goes to violence or it goes to, and I was thinking of this is a timely show because the holidays are starting. And
I mean,
right, people are going to
yes.
be sitting down, and politics are going to come up, and all kinds of crazy stuff are going to come up. And this is a time when family's supposed to come together. But you and I are both going to hear a story about a family that got in a huge argument, or haven't talked to my brother or my sister, my parents in years, and we thought we'd sit down and it was horrible, right? Because no one's willing just to sit down and have a conversation.
And that is something that we're not taught throughout our educational system. That's the most important thing that we can see that is affecting society. Usually we tend to gain our main tools of conflict resolution, negotiation, when we're in between the ages of 0 to 7, when we're learning as a little human being to be able to learn about how to navigate what we call life, right? And if we were very lucky and we had very wise grandparents, parents, professors, teachers around us that might have dealt with the situation, and as a child you observe, that is your first tools that you use as you grow up as an adult. We go through an entire career path of going all the way to a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhDs. And we still see the lack of that human side of essential skills of conflict resolution.
I think in schools, they just say, well, you hurt someone's feelings. Then you must have done something wrong if their feelings are hurt. I think it was Ricky Gervais who said, how privileged a life are you living that you think you can walk around and never have your feelings hurt? I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. I spend my whole day getting my feelings hurt, So
yes.
We have to grow up with it. But the school is not making our children resilient by just saying, well, if you're upset about something, someone must have done something wrong, versus if you're upset about something, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to resolve this, right?
Correct. And it hurts my heart to see constantly in the news and LinkedIn, Facebook, young children that kill themselves because of being bullied.
Yeah.
We're constantly seeing this. And I myself, when my daughter that she was being bullied. And I had the opportunity to experience the educational system at how they want to shove things under the rug and look the other way, because there's not a lot of good mechanisms inside, even the business educational systems, and pretty much everywhere, except the universities that happen to have an ombuds department, which is somebody that has the area of expertise aside that will work with the students and the staff. But we still live in a business society in where we only have very punitive mechanisms like
Right.
HR, whistleblower, labor relations, employer relations, even unions that perhaps are put there in order to protect employees' labor rights, but yet they're not the source or the mechanism for employees to be able to resolve conflict in the workplace.
Yeah.
Because this is a skill that it is not very, very well known. Now, more and more, I am an instructor for 14 years, and more, we're seeing more people that have the expertise that I have, that are now doing beautiful work in the business area, in the communities. But we need more, right? Because the world is so big. We need more.
I know, so it's been so far very interesting conversation, and I could talk about this stuff all day, but I want to get back to what you do a bit. So Can you just give us a general framework of your conflict IQ? What does that look like?
Conflict IQ is the idea that the skills itself not necessarily create that that wisdom and that ability to be able to resolve conflict.
Okay.
One skill might be able to help you resolve particular conflicts, right? But we're constantly bombarded with this understanding, like you said, you have your wife, your dog, and your family, and you're constantly dabbling with emotions and situations that are perceived differently, right? And the idea behind this is that how can I help to instruct professionals to have what I call meta skills that it is not only the way you listen, it is the way that you have your tone of voice, the way that you have communication roadblockers that affect or increase conflict, and also the ability to taking a look into your inner self, because if you don't know yourself better, you would not be able to have a level of empathy to be able to wanting to resolve issues with other people.
Yeah. As soon as you look inside, you're headed down, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It is a combination of self-growth with skills and behavior modification. And all of that combination creates an equation of conflict IQ.
So when you say behavior modification, what does that mean? Because that sounds like doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, means that the skills are not enough, because you might be able to mechanically use a skill, right? But that skill does not or has not been translated into a wisdom within yourself in order to be able to use it anywhere and everywhere.
So it's like going to school and learning math, but then you go get a job as an accountant and you understand the philosophy, but you haven't practically used the skill.
Exactly. Okay. So, the trainings that I give in this area of conflict resolution or conflict IQ is part experiential training, because people or businesses have the perception that I can come in for a 1-hour class or workshop and give them a whole bunch of skills in conflict resolution. It doesn't work that way, because people have emotions. People have that area of the emotions. And when emotions get the best out of people, the first thing that leaves your brain is your skills. Because especially if the emotions are negative, you're going to go into a flee or flight or fight mode, in where everything in your body is going to shut down, especially your analytical brain.
So you're saying your skills, your brain, your logical brain is the first thing to shut down.
Exactly. And your skills are going to go with it. So how do you become more emotionally intelligent and then be able to understand why conflict happens? How does it look like? If we don't resolve it, and if we don't learn how to transform it, especially because not all conflict can be resolved.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to agree to say, we're not going to agree on this. How do
you move forward? Right?
Yeah. And I mean, back in the good old days, you used to be able to argue with someone. I know some of my guys I've grown up with my whole life in high school, we would argue and, disagree on all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, we were still friends. It feels now like if you disagree with someone, there's not even the wherewithal to maintain a relationship, whether it's personal or professional.
Well, if you notice, the levels of divorce in throughout these years have been going up and up and up.
Is it?
If a human being, especially in a younger age, do not have the opportunity to observe the most important people in their life, that are the parents, be able to disagree on things and still love each other and be able to work it out.
Right.
You learned from a very young age that, you just get rid of people. You just ignore them. You just fight them, right?
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
all these things. And it is very fundamental to pay attention. As how is it that you grew up and how did you learn how to resolve conflict from the beginning? And that is part of getting to know yourself better.
So does
And
that, sorry to interrupt you, but you said that ties back because you learn these skills. What did you say, from the age 1 to 8 or something like that?
Usually the therapist said that the personality in the world, maneuvering of the world for a younger kid comes between the ages of 0. They say that it's all the way from the womb all the way to the age 7.
Okay. Because I know, I mean, this is way off topic, but even children that are like homeschooled, right? They don't get that interaction, that social, that you take my toy, I'm going to smack you kind of navigating the world. And I think it was Jordan Peterson who said, you can't catch up. If you miss those years, you'll always just be a little behind socially than other people, catching social cues and being able to interact and doing things like that. So it's very interesting, like how when we're young, how much we're protected, how much we're coddled and protected from conflict. It sounds like that. Then, when we get into our professional life, we're like, I don't know how to deal with this stuff.
Yeah, you might have a very well-rounded understanding about the business you're running, the skills that you have to do the work that you do. But when it comes to dealing with people, you're going to end up bringing those skills that you learn at a very young age. And I call them an outdated skills.
And I guess a skill is a skill. If your skill is to bury your head in the sand, that's your skill, right?
Correctly.
Okay.
And if you go throughout your career path and you realize that you have grown to become a leader where you're managing people and this and that, and you're smart yourself enough to understand that the more you go up the ladder, you're going to be working with people. And then you take the actionable steps to find courses, workshops in these field of work, then you're going to be better off.
Right.
But always my concern is that we also have very punitive systems embedded in the workplace. For example, if a manager is having issues with an employee and goes to HR, their lens, if we put some glasses, their lenses, it's about, are they following policy and procedures?
Yep.
Is this a problem employee? And
right?
How much is it going to cost us to get rid of this person?
Yeah. HR works for the company.
Right. Because throughout my career, I went and studied a certificate in HR because I was puzzled, not only because I myself experienced HR in my career, but I was puzzled as to why are we not using these humanistic, noble techniques in order to have people to work together. It's to the benefit of the company.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But that's a very, very big secret about HR, that they look that they are very people-oriented type of individuals. Their personality styles are very people-oriented. But the systematic process that they learned about HR, is very policies and procedures. It is carrying a stick. And then if a manager comes over, they're going to teach them to be a mini HR. You have to document, you have to do this, you have to do that. Ignore that person. It's because they're going to be trained by somebody that it's blind, the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. And they're also, their job is to mediate risk. And so if someone comes and makes a claim about a manager that exposes the company,
Mhm.
then okay, well, we got to minimize the exposure here. What are our options?
Right.
If it's, well, this manager is really good and now we have a problem employee, where are our risks? How is that going to affect the company, the culture, all
Yeah.
that?
And what is going to cost us less? Does it cost me less to get rid of an administrative assistant than a manager?
Right.
They get rid of the
Yeah.
cheapest person
What's less
because
disruptive?
exactly
Yeah.
because they don't have mechanisms to be able to work and de-escalate human conflict.
Right.
And and don't get me wrong, there are HR people, well-meaning people that go out and extend to read books, especially the famous book in difficult conversations. But I myself have experienced that they have used the difficult conversation skill set in order to deal, for example, with bullying in the workplace, with hostility in the workplace,
Right.
and it goes way wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think we kind of started verging on, so we always like to get into what are some of the mistakes you've seen. I think we've talked a lot about conflict and what it looks like. I mean, personally, professionally, different levels of the business. But as a small business owner, excuse me, I just hit my mic. As a small business owner, what are some of the mistakes you've seen or would hazard a business owner against? Like, don't make these mistakes when you're dealing with conflict.
Well, first and foremost, dealing with a small business owners, the tendency for a business to grow is most likely to happen. And when the business grows, change happens. And we think that change is just a natural thing that we can go through as humans. You might have to change softwares to run the company, CRMs. Uh, you might change the performance evaluations. Even changes as that minor can have a huge impact in the people.
Yep.
And if
Agreed.
you don't look at the human side of the change and you don't maneuver that, you're creating a recipe of no success because people are going to be um, struggling with the change. And on top of that, humans are humans. We deal with our own stuff outside the workplace. The environment that we're living, the political environment. So we are humans that are dealing with so much, and all of a sudden, you're changing something that they're used to doing every time that they come from work, excuse me, they come from home, in a place where they can devote their mind to do something else and forget about the world outside, forget about the kids, forget about everybody else. And all of a sudden, you're moving that from them, and the humans have reactions to it. So
Sure.
I think that is one of the things that small companies and big corporations forget about it. You know, I was just recently in Las Vegas giving out a training to CFOs and accountants, and I was very surprised and not because I see it often that one of the persons that was in my training said, you know, we had this huge change happen in the organization. And yes, they did hire consultants, and yes, they did create a systematic process. But then the people just went bad. And I said, that is very strange because a change management consultant should also have the ability to lead the leaders to help lead people to the process of change. And a lot of consultants forget that. They go in and create a communication chart, and we're going to do this, and we're going to involve that, and we're going to, they go and kind of do that like the marketing and PR of the change. They
Yep.
forget about people. They think that that is more than enough. And where you have to have more of the human touch in
Right.
order to help people lead. So I would say that small businesses and big businesses, that is one of the things that I see often happening.
And I think what you were talking about there is, or what I was thinking of is, in absence of information, people will make it up. And when they make up information, it's never good. It's always negative, right?
Yeah.
So if you're changing a system in the business and you're requiring people to do things differently, they're going to start playing a story in their head why this is happening. Well, maybe they're downsizing. Are they going to start firing people? Is this going to mean jobs are going out the window? I don't know how to use the system. Are they going to hire someone to use the system? Like, you don't know what they're saying, right? Why we have to do this? The old way was just fine, la, la, la. And so I know what you mean. Sometimes a small business owner in particular will say, okay, that we're just going to do this now. Just do this. Or I just bought a software and we're going to implement it. And they maybe didn't involve many people in that decision or whatever it could be. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but what I'm saying is that they overlook the people on the other side of that and walking them through the process and answering those kind of core questions for them around, here's why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. Here's how we think it'll affect the business. Here's how we think it'll affect you. You are not at risk. Just please get on the program and learn how to use this software, and you can be my super user and you'll actually have more job security, whatever it is. But we're so focused on execution and driving the business, sometimes we forget about the human element.
Correct. You know, it came to my mind 2 weeks ago. I was in a network event and I got the opportunity to network with a very bright women attorney. She was telling me about the story about her husband, because I was sharing the story about my father, that my father had a lot to do with my willingness and wantingness to dedicate my career path in order to help transform leaders. Because my father, with no formal education, he was a very well-loved leader by the employees, because he was a very good person. So she was sharing that one of her clients, a widow, she wanted to sell a small business that she had, and where they will recollect these pieces of, like hotel sheets, towels and all that, and then refurbish them in order to create small cleaning towels. Like the small cleaning towels. And her husband decided to buy the business. And he grew up the business like 3 times more than these women, because he never added more employees. He added technology. He brought in technology, but he sat down with the employees and got them involved in the whole process, mm-hmm. and eventually purchased technology that would allow to scale the business to be able to sell more of those.
Right. I bet you those employees gave him the ideas of what technology he needed to purchase, because they would know. They do it every day.
And she shared with me, the employees were very afraid of my husband. They thought that he was going to probably fire them because, they had been there for a long time, and that he was going to bring his people and this and that. And all of a sudden, these employees are doing tremendous amount of value of product. And obviously their salary was increased.
Sure. Yeah.
Immediately. And they adore my husband, she said.
That's very cool.
Because he worked with them in the whole process. Yeah. And I said, that's exactly. That is how an example of how you can do well by you can do great by doing well. You work with your human capital and be able to create more of your business, and still taking care of your employees so they can become very loyal to you.
Right.
And that is exactly the formula that I learned from my dad at a very young age.
That's a cool story. It brings me back to the and I don't know if you have data behind this, but people don't, when people bring ideas or you're making changes in the business, they don't want you to listen to their ideas and execute on their ideas as much as they want to feel like you heard them and understand what their idea was or their concerns are. And so I remember when I used to run restaurants and people, my guys, my staff would always bring ideas around, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And I'd be like, okay, walk me through it. And then sometimes you say, that's a great idea. Let me think about it. Let me take it to the owners and see if because it's going to cost some money. Or sometimes you might say, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. We tried something like that and it failed. It really didn't work out, but I like where you're going. They keep thinking about it. And that's all they want. They just want to feel like, oh, they heard what I said and they took it into account. They don't care if you adopt the idea or reject it. I mean, if you just say, oh, that's a stupid idea, no, they'll probably get a little bent out of shape. But it just goes back to that. Like those employees, they sat down and said, okay, we want to build the business. You guys work here every day. What ideas do you have? And I'm sure they said, well, if we could be more efficient here, if we could more, and he probably listened to all the ideas and he probably got 10 ideas and maybe he took 2 or 3 of them. But everyone was happy because they all felt heard.
Yeah, and their ideas got acknowledged. I always explain to whenever I'm coaching people, I always tell people to always remember that people's ideas are like their ugliest babies. You would never tell a parent your baby's ugly.
Yeah, right? I love that. Yeah,
even if the idea is, like you said, is stupid, you would never say your idea is stupid. You would always find that little cute thing that baby has, right? Because you would never say that your baby's ugly, right?
Correct. Yeah.
They all have beautiful eyes or a beautiful, cute nose, something. That's exactly what you do with your staff. You would never criticize or put down their ideas. You can tell them, I like exactly as you say, I like where you're going. I like the fact that you're interested on upgrading the system or making things better to run more smoothly. I like that idea. And then you can help them build upon that idea with more ideas. Have you thought of, right?
Yeah. And even beyond that, now you know where their interests lie. And if you say, well, I didn't know you were interested in that. If we bring in a new system, would you like to be the person who helps set it up? Would you like to be involved in the implementation? And maybe they go, nope. Or maybe they say, yeah, I'm super interested in knowing how all this stuff works. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we can move them in a direction where you have your job over here, but I'm going to, maybe 80% of your time's over here, and I'm going to give you 20% on this project. And now they're super satisfied because they're not only did their idea get heard, but they're part of the team to implement it as well.
Yes, correct. And that is another thing that perhaps small businesses might run into. How do you involve your staff? Right. And many of the small businesses do not have an HR, an internal HR. That's the other thing. And they run more with the chances that the external HR consulting firm will be more mechanical, right? Yeah. Mechanical in the meaning of, is this person broke policy or procedures or not?
Right.
And then it takes the business owner, right, or a well-trusted person inside the organization to be able to have these difficult conversations with people, because humans are humans and they want to be heard.
Yep.
And then when you're hearing, just like the example of the ideas, right? When you're talking to employees, you try to see, first and foremost, try to de-escalate the situation by bringing the skills of humanity, empathy, listening skills, active listening skills. Yeah. To be able to allow the other person to calm down and feel like they are in a safe psychological space in order to have these difficult conversations. If the employee at any time perceives, because we're humans, we can feel more than what we hear. We can walk into a room and not hear anything, but we can feel the energy, right? That's how we're very perceptive human beings. If the employee is feeling that your way of communicating is to document, to go and bring in HR help, and they're not in a position in where they feel that you're trying to work things out with them, people are going to shut down, they're going to raise their bars, and they're going to become very nasty, right? Because
Yeah.
they are going to be in a space where they need to defend themselves.
Yeah. They get stuck
So,
in.
exactly. So if a business owner with a small company that doesn't have HR has those humanistic tendencies to sit down with the employees and say, hey, what is going on in here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
definitely address if they're breaking policies and procedures, and definitely do something about it. Because once again, HR says, okay, they broke policies and procedures, and we're just going to person not to do it again, and then nothing else happened. There's no apology for the other person. They don't get into those levels because they're constantly seeing things as lawyers. That's going to
Yeah.
create risk.
Yeah.
Going into a humanistical side of it can create risk.
Okay.
Versus in my experience of working using all of these skills, mediation, restorative practice, conflict resolution skills, and all of these other meta skills that go embedded into all of this. I've seen people that have put together formal complaints and they're going into the equal opportunity department, and they take it out and say, okay, I want to work humanistically with this person because I want to preserve my job. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do, and I want to continue coming here and do my work. The only thing that I don't want is that this person treats me bad, right?
Right.
I want to understand how I can get along with this person, not to become friends, but at least to be professional, because nobody wants to get out of a job, right? It is difficult, going and applying for jobs and this and that. And then the consequences of having situations like that, and I'm telling you because I went through it myself, is that when you have employees that are dealing with these type of conflicts, and in the meantime, HR is taking months in order to do the investigation, and whatever they do that they don't do much, that employee feels disconnected, feels like HR is doing nothing. All of a sudden, from the 8 hours of work, they're barely putting 2 hours of work into the workplace.
Right.
Why? Because most of the energy mentally into, I don't want to be dealing with these people. Secondly, the rest of the hours is going into applying for new jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Then
I agree.
The next 2 hours, they're rushing to get everything done in the workplace. So
right.
The employee, it's not that they're robbing from the company, but they're not productive to the work that they're paid to do. And at the end of the day, the employer or the company's bottom line gets affected.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
that is something that a lot of businesses, like business owners, C-suite people, do not comprehend, that the skill sets that HR bring into the system, they're extremely punitive, that eventually can drain resources of the organization.
Right. Well, we
don't
have
want that in businesses.
correct.
Maybe a big company can get the hit, but a small business, you don't play with those things because you will feel it the most in your bottom line.
So we've covered a lot here, but if you were to give a small business owner your top 3 to 5 pieces of advice or best practice or next steps, if they wanted to kind of start moving towards this humanistic model and being more receptive and more human-centered in terms of the way they deal with conflict. What are the top 3 to 5 pieces of advice you'd give them, Yvette?
I would say that, in order to become more humanistic, you have to learn how to you deal with conflict and how you create emotional regulation within yourself so that you don't get reactive to your employees. Because if you get angry with your employees, you're defeating the whole purpose. So if you become more emotional regulated and you also become a model as to how you resolve conflict with other companies that are working with you, with your customers, then employees will feel more comfortable to come over and say, you know what, this is happening in the workplace. That's one. The other one, don't allow conflict to fester in the workplace, because we think that people are just fighting and it's going to go away and they're just
wait and see. Wait and see. Yeah, kick the can. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is dangerous because
it's the worst decision you can make.
Yeah, you have to address it. You have to address it, not in a punitive way, but go and talk to the employees and try to figure out ways of how they can work together. They don't have to be best friends, but try to work together. So that will be 2. And then thirdly is, open up the possibility of learning more about people skills, putting more attention into the people skills, because it is humans that can build or break a company.
Agreed. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been fun. We could talk. I mean, we covered a lot of ground and a lot of topics. We could do a 2-parter here, but this is really enjoyed the conversation. And if people are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to learn more about Yvette, and we know you have a couple books. Where can I buy her books? Where can we find that stuff?
Yeah, you can Google my name in Amazon and you will see several books that I already have published. One of them is in the methodology of conflict IQ, and the other one is for women's negotiation.
Perfect.
Because typically men have more skills in negotiation than women, so I want to change that.
Yeah, great. Let's do it. Just don't tell my wife. She already is out negotiating me all the time, so she doesn't need any more help. We're going to put some links to your books in the liner notes. And then if people want to connect with you or learn more about you, how do we find you?
You can Google my name and a website will come out, or maybe a lot of podcasts that I have been into. My YouTube videos also there, my Instagram, Facebook, or you can also type unitivconsulting.com.
Yeah, and we'll put that in the liner notes as well. Matt, do we have a LinkedIn address for? There you go. Okay, Yvette Durazo. So people can connect with you directly. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you scheduling some time in your calendar to talk to us. It's been great.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Much appreciated.
Our pleasure. Thank you. There you go, Yvette Durazo. That was a super interesting conversation. Like I said, man, we could have gone on and on and on. Some really good stuff in there. So while you're listening, and if I still have your attention, be sure to subscribe or follow us on whatever platform you are on. Send us a message. Let us know what you think of the show, good, bad, indifferent. Let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. And connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to hear from you. Just let us know, hey, Corey, love listening to the pod. And I will be sure to accept your connection request. This is the last show before the new year. So I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a happy, healthy, prosperous 2026. I don't know how everyone's feeling about 2026. I'm feeling good about it, but we have some shows lined up in the new year that are going to be really exciting. Can't wait for it. So until next time, I'm Corey Harlock. I've been your host. Stop grinding, start growing.